Hi, welcome to today's Mishna, Brura, chapter 102. Shelo lehafsik, to not interrupt or block, keneged hamitpalel, opposite the person davening. Vohei seifim, and there are 5 paragraphs. Asur leishev betoch 400 shel mitpalel. It is forbidden to sit within 4 amot, and amah is about a half a meter, so within about 2 meters of somebody praying. Bein milfanav, bein min hatzadin, whether in front of him, whether on the sides. Uvein mil acharav, or even behind him, says the Ramah. Tzarech la'archik 400. You need to be distant 4 amot. V'im osek b'dvarim shehem mitikunei atfilot. And if you are engaged in matters which are fixing the prayers, even in the chapter of where is the place, the chapter dealing with the korbanot offerings, then you don't need to distance. So if you yourself are engaged in prayer, you don't need to move away. There's some who permit when someone is engaged in Torah study, even though it's not fixing up prayers, in other words, not connected to the prayer experience. Some say that the permissibility of Torah or even other prayers is standing on the side of a person, but in front of him, you're even in front of his eyes. As far as the eye can see, kimlo einav, like the fullness of the eye, as far as the eye can see, is forbidden. Even someone who's engaged in the saying of the Shema. Number 2, yesh mi shomer, some say, shime yoshe b'tzad mitpalel chalush. If the person sitting on the side of the one davening is weak, is feeling weak, mutar, then it is permissible to be on the side. Number 3, im hayoshev yashav kavar, if the one sitting down was already sitting, v'amad ze b'tzidur, and the other guy got up to stand on his side. So I'm busy sitting where I am, and somebody gets up to daven, einot tzarich lakumid, he does not need to get up. I don't need to now move because he decided to daven. Because that guy came into my boundary, into my area. Umikol makom, nevertheless, midat chasirutu lokum afilu b'kiyah gavna. It is a measure of piety, a holiness, to move even in such a case where somebody else moves into your area. It's a good thing if you'll still move out the way. The Mishna Brura says, asur leishev, you're not allowed to sit in front of him, v'gam esmicha asur, and also leaning is forbidden. It's not just that I can't sit in the area, but I can't even lean in the area. Ach smicha b'miktzat, even leaning a little. She'im yinatel yuchal amod, that if it will be taken, he will be able to stand. Yesh lahakel b'makom adchak. You can rely on, you can be lenient in a time of pressure. So the litmus test of whether it's proper leaning or just a little bit of leaning is the matter that you're leaning on. If it would fall over, if you would fall over if it were taken away, then that's proper leaning. If it wouldn't fall over, if it were taken away, then that's a little bit of leaning, and so that you can rely on in a time of need. But toch 400, within 4 amot, 2 meters, afilu kshu yoshev be'alachson, even if he is sitting diagonally, Dai 400 is enough. In other words, you don't need to do the Pythagoras thing and say that the diagonal is longer, than the square. In other words, it's a circle, not a square. There's 4 amot. We do not require the 4 amot plus the extra amount for the right angle, like the Magen Abraham says. I'm Pri Megadim. Take a look at the Pri Megadim. Katav Chai Adam. The Chai Adam wrote, Ima mitpalel omed b'tzad echad. If the person praying stands on one side, midavar shu kavua, from something fixed, kavua asara v'rachav arba, that is 10 amot high and 4 amot wide, mutar lishev b'tzad hasheni, then you can sit on the other side. That is 10 tfachim high and 4 tfachim wide. So you have it's a meter high, it's 40 centimeters wide. So you have a bit of a barrier between the two. You're allowed to sit on the second side. You're allowed to be on the other side of that barrier. Because that interrupts the domain. But to stand on the other side, it's possible if it's so high that he can't see the second side, asur, then that would be then that would be prohibited. V'chein pasak b'hilchot katanot, and that's what they wrote in Hilchot Katanot. V'chein mitzadei da prima gadim, and that is prima gadim takes the side. That takes the same side. In other words, that's how he also rules. Sheyesh lachmir la'avor be'alem re neged mitpalel, that he says you shouldn't go through this area opposite the person davening. Afshu reshut bifnei atzmo, even though it's really its own domain. So walking or standing he's not so happy with, but sitting he permits in a different domain. Even if it is within 4 amot, he says that is okay. Shel mitpalel, the person praying, even if the person praying is saying the supplications after prayer, and what he means is that paragraph of Elokai Neshama, kozman shelo pasach, the entire time that he has not stepped, he's still considered to be part of his Amidah. Same rule, not to pass by opposite the person davening. Or whether after, whether behind him. And that's what the Achronim wrote as well, that you shouldn't be walking behind him either. But if I'm saying things like the chapter of the Korbanot, where I didn't say law in osek befrakim b'mincha b'shabbat, if he's engaged in the Pirkei Avot at mincha, gamkein mutar l'shev b'tzad mitpalel, you're also allowed to sit next to somebody who's davening. V'yesh matir, and some permit it even if you're studying Torah. The Sfira lay, he holds. Our sages do not prohibit sitting on the side of the one davening, only when he sat and was silent. Silent sitting is problematic, to go and sit next to, in front, or behind. Because it looks as if he does not want to accept upon himself the yoke of heaven. But when he sits and studies Torah, then he is accepting the yoke in heaven. So in other words, it's like if you almost some kind of objection, to his davening, that's what's going to be problematic. But if clearly he's happy for him to daven and he's doing his own, kind of religious experience, then that's absolutely fine. Take a look at Achronim. It is good to be strict. To stand according to the first opinion. In other words, better to stand next to him, because then again, it's not so casual. Unless it's a time of pressure. But behind him, it seems to me you needn't worry about this. In other words, to sit behind somebody davening and study Torah, that's absolutely fine. Somebody engaged in Torah study, particularly or only if he is expressing the words of Torah with his lips. Aval im maharher belibo, but thinking in his heart, animal ill does not help. And even when it comes to matters of fixing up the prayers, in other words, sitting and davening or connected to davening, still it's no good. Why? The atu lemichshadei, atu is Aramaic, will come to lemichshadei, to suspect him. He's not accepting yoke of him. And he just looks like he's casually sitting there glancing over a book. But opposite of but you shouldn't be in front of him because it looks like he is bowing down to you. Right? So you walk in front of him and then he's davening and bowing down, so it doesn't look so good. According to this reason, only sitting is problematic because I'm sitting there casually and he's bowing down to me. But if I'm standing there, it's okay. Even within 2 meters, because it doesn't look like he's bowing down to me anymore. Perhaps he holds that even standing is problematic, because through this his intention is negated. So that's another factor over here, is that it's distracting. So up until now we've been looking at it from the perspective of the the non-davener in the shul. We're saying, can he go over there? Because what is the problem? What declaration is he making of that he doesn't care, or that the other person is bowing down to him? That's where the problem comes in. But now we're saying it also can disturb the intention of the person davening. Afilu osek, even if he's involved in Torah, Perisha, Yoshev Niga Mitpalel, osek b'kriyat Shema. The person sitting opposite the one praying is saying Shema. V'ayim b'bri chadash, pasuk edei kamaita, taken over b'bri chadash, who went like the kamaita first. Aramaic. The first opinion. There's no difference in front of him from the sides. In times when you're allowed to sit on the sides, you're allowed to sit in front of him as well. The other Achronim, Katu, wrote, it is good to go strict like the second opinion. Venerally, it seems to me, standing outside of his 2 meters, certainly you should not go strict. Maybe even within his 2 meters, it's not such a problem. But outside of his 2 meters, definitely not a problem. Inside the 2 meters, sitting is more problematic, standing less problematic. Chalush, if he's feeling weak, this means it is known that he is weak. It's impossible, impossible for him to stand. And therefore, mutar lo leishev, it is permissible for him to sit. Chul shato, his weakness, mochachat, proves alav regarding him. Because of this he was sitting. And davka to sit on the sides of the one praying. In front of him, they're somewhat strict even with somebody who is feeling weak. Mutar, it is permissible. V'yesh lismoch al dvarav, you should rely on his words. If it is impossible for him easily, bakal is easily, to distance 4 amot from there and sit there. Lakum, to get up. So if somebody else comes into my area, I don't have to get up. Rather, the one praying needs to move 4 amot mimenu from him when he wants to stand and pray. So I was here first, so he needs to take me into consideration rather than the other way around. If somebody came into my domain, this applies specifically in his home. But if it is a fixed minyan, certainly in the shul, then I should actually get up. Because that's everyone's place. He's not coming into my space, he's coming to our space. And even if the places are fixed for each person that he bought them with money, in other words, that's my seat, I'm renting that seat in the shul. Nami also, yesh lahachmir, you should be strict. But so, in other words, I'm sitting in my seat and this other guy comes along to daven, so I can say, my seat. So, you should still be strict and move if it's a shul, because that's his space as well. But if I'm sitting there learning Torah, we shouldn't be strict about me moving, because it's going to disturb my Torah study. And how much more so a rabbi, so a teacher sitting with his students, velomdim and learning, and then 10 people come and start davening, you don't need to get up. And even a measure of piety there is not. Midah chasidut, to move out the way of the guy, in order to lift a stumbling block from his friend, who did inappropriately, so he shouldn't have come and daven with me sitting right over there. So it's a good thing for me to move so that he's no longer in violation. Because he got up to pray within 4 amot of somebody who's already sitting there in permissibility. And the fact that I'm sitting there is a disgrace to the holiness of prayer. So really, it shouldn't be that I'm within the 2 meters of prayer. It's his responsibility. So it should be, really it should be that he shouldn't be over there. And therefore, by me moving out the way, I'm helping him out, that he's no longer in violation. That's it for today.